And there's a lot of information, data, and numbers, and I try to make a story from that. I try to spot a trend from that. I try to see if there's something special going on and try to communicate that to decision makers, which is particularly hard to convince them of something that's that technical, but that's kind of what I do.
Right, thank you for demystifying economists to us.
That might actually make it more confusing, I don't know.
Thank you, Ian.
As Nina said, my position as Deputy Registrar with the Private Security Investigative Services branch at our Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services is responsible for regulating the entire security and private investigations and the agencies that they work for in the province of Ontario. My position, as I said, as similar to my colleague down here, is in the senior leadership team. I've been a public servant for 18 years in security and enforcement, and I've been with the OPS for 7 years.
Thank you. So I know for me, and I can imagine for many of the students here, the Ontario government seems like a difficult nut to crack. So before we talk about how they might get their foot in the door, could you tell us a little bit about how each of you got your foot in the door? How did you get the job? Where did you find it? Do you want to start a bit? Should we start a bit there with you, Ian?
My commitment to public service began back in 1995 after graduating from my university back in the UK with a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering. I knew that I didn't want to be an engineer in the private sector. I'm working for the oil industry at the time, coming straight out of university into an engineering position in the oil industry. But there's a lot of public service in our family. It was logical that I would want to go into public service. I joined policing service in the UK pretty much straight out of university, and was there for 10 years altogether. But then my wife, who's a Canadian, wanted to come back to Canada, and I just kept applying for positions within the Ontario Public Service. Once we arrived here in 2005, I gained a position with the Ministry of Revenue, my colleague here in Finance. And earlier last year, I gained the position with our Ministry in Community Safety and Correctional Services. But I love it, I really do. I love being in public service. It's the motivating factor for me, and always has been for the last 18 years.
So I don't come from the same line of public service like lineage. Being from a family that just immigrated from Vietnam, my parents didn't even know what an economist is, much like most of the people in this room right now. But my humble beginnings in the public service basically began when, I think in the summer of 2009, I just applied for a summer job, which was paying, I think, minimum wage at the time within the Ministry of Finance. So I was completing my master's, and I decided to take 4 or 5 months off, just because like for the master's you need to take 4 or 5 months off. And I started working as a summer student within the ministry, within the very unit that I'm working right now. I worked really hard, mainly because I didn't know anybody else in Toronto at the time, so I had nothing else to do. So I worked really hard, and that entire 4, 5, 6 month process was basically an interview process.